So we're going to start by just take 5 minutes, probably not even 5 minutes, like 2 minutes, talking about good colleagues here, career teammates. What makes them amazing teammates? Why do you like to work with them? Who are they? Is it someone that shares your role and they're kind of a mentor, or is it someone that's kind of a counterpart where you really complement each other's roles? So just take a few minutes to kind of jot down some notes there and try to be specific about some of these statements. So maybe they're really good at not overwhelming you, or maybe they're really good at forcing you to think outside the box. There'll be lots of note-taking in this session, I'm sure. I actually didn't make a sheet for...
You want to do this one?
Yeah. Just write down some answers so we can go back to them for the rest of our session.
Yep.
Alright, feeling pretty good? So which one of you on your list put that your favorite career teammate is a great problem solver in geometry? They can solve all the right triangles. Nobody? I'm shocked. So this is really kind of our first shot at looking at the socio-emotional aspect of learning and how it is such a collaborative, dynamic opportunity for you to really engage not only your colleagues, but really kind of start from the bottom and encourage that growth on behalf of your students. So let's start maybe with Jessica this time.
Okay.
What'd you think?
So I put that a couple of my favorite colleagues are, first off is my AP,
Okay.
assistant principal. She's also new at our site this year, and she's just really good at letting me kind of decompress when I need to. Just
Okay.
sit down and just let it all out. So I guess she's kind of my counselor. So she's also really good at offering advice, just helping me see, maybe being that problem solver for me.
Mhm.
So when I have too much going on and I can't really focus and lean down what
Yeah.
I need to do, she sometimes lets me speak, vent it all out, and then she'll, just reiterate it back to me and
That's
say, oh,
important.
this is what I heard you do, this is what you need to focus on,
Yeah.
which is really nice. And she's a great support for our counseling team.
Okay.
So she's a huge advocate, so it's really nice.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Lucky you.
The second person is a new counselor who's also new there with me. Three of the four of us are brand new to the
Wow.
site this year, plus our AP, so it's been fun. She's a brand new first year counselor out of California, and I really like working with her because she is new. She's still very passionate and excited, just willing to take on any task and tackle it, and it's always all about the students.
Mhm.
Like, she still has that full passion.
Cool.
I've worked with people before who've been counselors for 20 years, and they've kind of fizzled out, and
Yeah.
I kind of just
Hi there.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I kind of just, it's hard, I've been in both situations. It's hard to work with somebody who's lost the passion or just forgotten what
Okay.
they started doing in this job
Just a
for.
little burnout.
So, right.
Yeah, jaded. It's easy, it happens,
It happens all the
And especially, the long hours and
time. Right,
school year takes a toll on you.
right.
So, we're gonna talk to Wendy real quick, and then we're gonna hear from you. A little introduction.
Right on.
Um,
I was in there just like doing my work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 10:17. So I apologize.
Oh, it's okay.
Just got started.
We just got started. Yeah, this
So
is.
contemplate the question on your slide.
Yeah.
And
We'll have an introduction though, so we'll ask you the 4 things that you should think about first. Actually, 1, job title and role. Introducing yourself, talk a little bit about where you come from, and the students you serve. Number 2, 3 tasks that take up the majority of your time.
Okay.
Number 3, what you'd like to do but maybe don't have time for or can't, in quotes. And then lastly, what makes you feel successful? And what do you think about that? We're going to jump to Wendy and hear about some of her career teammates.
A couple come to mind. We have an admissions director, Kayla Smith, who he's just always high energy. He's always motivated to learn, and I really feed off of that.
Okay.
Always motivated to improve the school. And my director of the department is great to work with. She doesn't micromanage, and she is just a good mentor.
Okay.
She has been there for 27 years, but she's still, just very passionate about what she does, and it shows.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
very knowledgeable, passionate, and it's really nice to
Yeah.
be
Like
a
you
part
said,
of that.
really empowers you to kind of make your own decisions and not micromanage a lot of the day-to-day stuff.
Absolutely.
It's really important. All right. I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry. I'm Brad.
So I'm Meg Scythe. I'm from St. Augustine. I'm from Tucson.
Okay.
St. Augustine Catholic High School. There's only 200 students. I'm the one and only. So guidance counselor, social emotional counselor. I'm also a crisis counselor at the elementary school that's up the street. So
Okay.
just maybe if they need something.
Okay.
So my background is I've been in education for 22 years. Mainly elementary special education, and then I got my master's in, I don't know if we've all talked about this, in 03. My kids got older, and I just said, this job came up. And I said, okay, so when I, in graduate school, in guidance counseling from NAU, loved NAU, the program and everything, but there was like 3 chapters in college and career guidance. And so I came in with no mentor, like with no, what's a SAR, what's a FAFSA, what's a CEEB code, what the heck, you know? And so I came in just student teaching as a 40-year-old lady all over again, and not really, so I grabbed mentors, within the diocese. This is my 3rd year. Guidance counselor, my 3 tasks that take up the majority of my time are trying to organize the college fair to make it efficient, to make all the college reps come at a time and involving the families. Reaching the freshmen, the sophomores, the juniors, and the seniors in the college prep process, and getting in and organizing that, not the lessons, but the time.
Okay.
And I've been, successful with that, pretty much. What I'd like to do, but can't, more of the social emotional counseling, because that's my background.
Great.
I would, and so I'm looking at the part of maybe going into private practice someday.
Okay. We're going to talk a lot about how ESSA allows us to develop some of our own academic standards and things like that.
Okay.
So socio-emotional learning is going to be like half of what we talk about today.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
What's the barrier there is the boundaries and the staff does not know the ethics behind it.
Yeah.
And so I'll be saying, well, no, you can't really do that. These are my babies.
Yeah.
These are my, I started with them as a freshman, and so the boundaries and the ethics behind that, it's really difficult to convey to the administration.
Yeah.
That can cause problems. What makes me successful? Reaching students, reaching parents. I have individual meetings with juniors and a binder, and going over individual planning with PSAT scores and SAT scores. It's a lot of time, but I enjoy it, and I don't know any other way to not do it.
Yeah.
My favorite colleague is the resource teacher.
Okay. And why?
I taught resource. When I came into this job, I was half-time counselor, half-time resource. It was not done successfully.
Yeah.
So I just said, I'm not serving the kids. It's got to be one or the other.
Right.
And so we support each other, and positive people. We compliment each other. We are honest with each other in terms of there's a boundary and ethical issue that's overstepped. We get it.
Yeah.
It's from the top that needs to get it too. So.
Figuring out how to.
Yeah, the roles. I think our roles as our school grows.
It's that dynamic. It's a little of the friction there. You just gotta figure out.
Yeah, and it's not really friction. It's just more. The school's growing.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the roles need to be more clearly established.
Okay.
And
What is the role
200, but when I started, it was about 140.
Okay.
And it's only seven,
It's been about for
9 through 12?
9 through 12, 13. So I have 37 seniors, and then
Okay.
next year I'll have 57 seniors.
Okay.
And so we're growing,
Yeah.
and so with that, our roles need to, I think, be more clearly defined to be more effective.
Absolutely. So Jessica is a high school counselor and department chair out about an hour outside
Okay.
of Tucson.
Yeah.
And Wendy is from the New Mexico Military Institute.
Oh, neat. Very cool.
Yeah.
What's
It's a boarding
the-
school.
It's a boarding school, okay.
Yeah, it is. It's a military boarding school, an MMI.
Is it to get into the academies? Or?
It can go either way. It isn't, it can go either way. It reflects very good for the academies to get in, but not all of our students go to an academy.
For the academies, they're going for
Yeah,
different
We
reasons.
have students that continue to go to our college, which is a junior college, or they go from Duke to whatever
Oh,
they want
okay.
to do with it.
So it's really flexible, right?
Absolutely,
student.
yeah. It's just distilling discipline.
I guess I went, wow, because this year I started really bringing in the military branches to talk to our students.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's big on, it is big on JROTC, but it's also just very leadership driven.
Neat.
Ready?
Very neat.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ready?
That's
Really
neat.
nice.
And my oldest wants to go into ROTC, so that's why I also lit
You
up
should
like,
look into it. It's a fabulous school.
What would you guess your gender split is?
It's very male dominant.
Okay.
We have about 20% of our students are female.
Okay.
However, almost all of them have leadership roles within the
Okay.
school. So,
Interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, not surprising by any means, but That's
it
really
really
cool.
brings them out of their shell. It is pretty amazing to watch the females thrive in it.
Cool.
So it's very much male-dominated school.
Mhm.
So I'm Stacy. I don't know if we get our
Yeah.
introduction. I'm Stacy. I'm actually the Arizona New Mexico Princeton Review Executive Director.
Okay,
So if you need anything from us,
okay.
in addition to this or questions about this, I oversee all of Arizona, New Mexico, and then this is Brad.
my name is Brad. I oversee Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. Same role as Stacy. So today's session, counselors in the classroom, just really how to maximize your time in the classroom, how to work with your colleagues. You all have such unique roles, and how to leverage your networks, both your professional networks as well as some community organizations, the parents, and others involved in your campus. So. Here, just talking a quick breakout of academic versus life skills, kind of book smart versus life skills, and why that's important. And so just kind of starting a discussion around, obviously these academic skills are so important, but when we look at the socio-emotional learning aspect of it, they're very complementary and they really parallel each other. And so it's incredibly important for us to recognize that these academic skills are oftentimes kind of hammered over the head. These students, they're hearing, you have to get great grades, you have to take challenging courses, and really push themselves academically in the classroom. And there's not a whole lot of recognition for what we might call soft skills, the life skills, and how do we promote that? How do we kind of reward students for navigating difficult conversations with peers or with teachers or with their parents, building really strong relationships, either with younger students in a mentor capacity or with maybe the counseling office, to serve as a student aide or something like that. So just kind of really looking at the differences between these two skills, and would like to hear from you guys, from your experience. The common core, what we all see, it doesn't necessarily assess the value of optimism, and some of those life skills that are really important to be successful regardless of what post-high school looks like for an individual student. And so just kind of hearing from you all, academic versus life skills and your experience on your own campus, do you feel like there's a working towards a balance? Is it completely out of whack? Are you doing things currently to promote kind of the life skills side, or is that kind of an opportunity for us to really connect today and brainstorm and spitball some of that stuff?
So I think at my school, since I'm very new there, the school I worked at last year was kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, where students are, 85% of those students were going to go to four-year colleges.
Okay.
Their parents likely both had degrees.
Okay.
They're coming from families like that. And now I'm at a school where I think it's like 22% are going to four-year colleges. Most of them are first generation.
Okay.
We are a Title I school.
Okay.
So we have a lot of students that are, qualifying for the top of the top for financial aid and stuff like that. And I'm just seeing that when I compare last year to this year, it really is comparing apples and oranges, even though we're in the same district. I'll have in a day, I'll have students who make schedules with me or appointments with me, and then they won't show up. So just that little thing to know that if you make an appointment, you go at the time that your appointment's scheduled. Something like that, they just don't come. So I've been talking to my principal this year about getting us out of our offices completely, more in the classroom, because we're more worthwhile if we're in the class delivering a lesson where we're talking to 30, 40 students as opposed to waiting on one student who may or may not show up. So I've been kind of frustrated with that this year, and I'm like, that's a life skill, and like our kids are not getting that there's certain things, or if they tell a teacher, if they come in and they ask for a teacher, could you review this essay for me? And then they tell the teacher, I'll come back after school. And then the teacher waits till 4:30, and they've been there an hour, and the kid never comes back. And the next day, the teacher's like, where were you? And they're, I had things to do. Well, so did I, but you asked me to do this, So I'm like, there's certain things like that I think need to be
making some of those connections.
kind of revisited.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Similar, we have a lot of first generation students. We have students who their parents want them to stay in state.
Okay.
I've been able to get into the classroom.
Okay.
Do lessons at least twice a year for each grade level. Because I have some teachers that I'm just like, hey, I'll bring you brownies. Where I'm like, hey, I was a classroom teacher, not high school, I was a classroom teacher, I know you need that grading time. And I know so I'll just kind of bring it that way, and it's worked.
And what are these lessons kind of built on?
So for freshmen, it is what's a GPA. Okay. And then analyzing your first transcript and SMART goal setting. Okay. And then we just revisited that our current mid-year, not our last mid-year progress report until transcript. So, and then we look at how close you are to that next grade level up. And then I talk about your GPA as like a paycheck too. So if you want this, do you want to make this, your 4.0 is 6 figures, your 1.7 is you're looking at. And so we do the SMART goals, and then I just touched a little bit on career. Okay. Sophomores, it's the same, and then more in career, and then talking about the test prep. Okay. And then introducing the Khan Academy to freshmen and sophomores, inviting them. For sure. And Khan Academy, they have financial literacy videos, they have all kinds of stuff. It's pretty robust, so definitely leveraging them. But what I'm finding is within junior year, it's just it's getting that big list, that college list, meeting, and then going over the whole application process with the parents and the students. So I have a huge binder, and it's just over, instead of buying the book because our school's poor, private schools, we don't have any money. So we're just like, okay, we're just going to Xerox, And so we just highlight and go through and make that college list, and then I look at PSATs. So it's an analytical, individual thing. Seniors, I got some constructive criticism. I asked a senior for it yesterday. So what did you need more of? Because my first 2 years, I was more in the office and available. Do you know what I mean? Like I was just... You had office hours and things like that? Or if they just came in, so I just pop in, hey, this is whatever. And then now it's more like I'm at conferences more, or I'm out of the classroom. I'm also teaching an elective class on college and career. But they're, the students are like, well, this is a bonehead class, it's an elective class, I just want to do my homework for the next class. So it's just like, okay, that's been hard. Okay. So the advice I got from the senior, she said, because I met with them in August, the seniors and the parents. And then, you send out the reminders and the announcements, but having maybe a October-November meeting instead of waiting till March and then April where I'm finishing it up. Right. Because I'm focusing so much on the FAFSA, but now FAFSA is changing. And stuff. So they're starting it earlier and all kinds of stuff too. Yeah, so it's really just finding the time. Yeah. But it's been more effective going into the classrooms, and I have, make your friends with your teachers that are open to that. Yeah. Just be like, you have like an hour for grading.
Yeah.
and stuff. And
That's not at 9:30 p.m.
Exactly.
After your kids go to bed or
and so
whatever.
I have their folders, you know, with their transcript and their SMART goal. And this is what you wrote last time, and this is what, you know, and we kind of build on that.
Cool.
And it's working, but
And have you gotten teacher feedback from those classrooms that you have visited? Is that kind of spreading?
teachers, yeah.
Okay.
Teachers, I've gotten some really good feedback on some learning style feedback, like,
Okay.
okay, I'm spacing out, and draw a circle every time you find yourself spacing out, don't put it, just learning strategies too for them. But it's
Great.
not our, you know, I think our biggest thing is we need help with our test scores.
Okay.
And that's where kids have to do it on their own. I mean, we can offer, we can email, we can announce, we can, things like that, but.
When you mention test scores, it's funny. I mean, so much of being successful, specifically in standardized tests, is goal setting, identifying a goal score, and then time management, right? Creating a game plan. How are we going to get there? What's our strategy? You know, it's less than 2% of the entire globe ends up with a perfect score on the ACT or the SAT. So I've taken it 30-something times. I've never gotten a perfect score. I work for the Princeton Review, you know, and I could teach this stuff. But what's realistic for me is maybe a 29 or a 31, or if your student isn't for a 22. And then just the goal setting comes in here as a life skill, not necessarily an academic skill, because then it becomes, in order to hit my goal score, instead of 75 English questions on the ACT, I'm going to look at 50 in
Right.
45 minutes.
Right.
So, you know, just really finding where there's so much overlap between this idea of academic success and the socio-emotional learning, and some of those real solid goal setting, time management, constructing your community, financial literacy, and there's all the overlay there. So let's hear from Wendy, and then we're going to move on.
All right, well, academic and life skills, those two things meet pretty closely together with my students and our school. And my position, I am fortunate where I do get to meet, right now I have the sophomore class, and I will graduate them. So next year I'll have them as juniors, then I'll have them as seniors. So right now, as sophomores, I get them once a week in a classroom, so I have 7 classrooms broken up. And other than meeting with them outside of class and everything else, I get to meet with them as a class individually. They are put into check with our school that if you make an appointment, you better keep it, because we will track you down. And you will you'll get something against it, either a demerit or a tour, or, just some kind of, there's a repercussion.
Okay.
So we are fortunate where we get to hold them accountable
Yeah.
for their actions. And I have worked in many other schools where this is unique, so I'm very fortunate for that. So if they don't show up, it's like, you know what, you reach out to them. You're down to earth about it. It's like, are you all right? And then if they don't respond, it's like, hello, okay, do I need to go and search for you, or what's going on? So they learn those accountability. In my classroom, I'm huge on keeping them motivated, because they come in and, it's like they're motivated, and then they get checked out, and then they're tired, whatever. So for me, it is really constantly checking them, keeping themselves in check, and what is your goal for this week? What can you do better this week that you didn't do last week? It's not even like, of course, at the end of the school year, you want to do this, but time goes by so fast. And before you know it, you're racing the clock for a week to do better in everything. It's like, no, set your goal for this week, and what are you doing, and how to keep them in check constantly. So we do try to keep them in check with their life skills. Academic, it goes hand in hand.
Totally.
It's like if you're not doing well in your life, your academics are probably suffering as well. If your academics aren't doing well, then something with your life skills is not doing well either. Finding that balance.
Yep.
What do you think is the most common life skill that you have to work on with your students? Because it seems like you have a very particular student at your school. Is there one that just is glaringly like, this is what we're always redirecting
They're
to?
all different. Everybody's different because they come from all over the world too. Some of them are local from our city, some of them. A majority of them it's an international school. So everybody is different. It's finding what makes that person tick. And you can give a general spill to a classroom But once you start to micro everything out, it's like, all right, I know what makes him tick and what makes this person and how does this girl act. And then they're teenagers. So on top of that, they don't even know themselves. And it's all these different elements. And I think the common thing on everyone, it doesn't matter if they are the top student or they're really doing poor, it's like keeping them motivated and seeing the value in what they're doing at that present time.
Great. And a lot of what was just shared and a lot of what we talked about in career teammates, everything that you mentioned was life skills, right? We're not great career teammates, we're not great best friends because of geometry or because our grammar rules are on point, right? It's very much hard work does equal success, and hard work is a life skill. And a lot of what we'll talk about today is the disconnect that specifically underrepresented students have between hard work and success, because they haven't had the direct exposure to some of those pathways, whether it's through their parents or through engagement in community organizations and things like that, that do show them hard work at the end of the day does equal success. And so for the sake of time, we're gonna just kind of keep moving through here. But our goals for today, defining the counselor's role, instead of defining the counselor's role, we talk about your specific roles. I wanted to hear about your unique job on campus, what makes it the majority of your time so we can make the rest of the session pretty relevant for all three of you. Describing the current state of counselor-student interactions at your campus, we talked a lot about that, what takes up the majority of your time, where you would like to spend more time if you had it. Goal setting for today and beyond, that's going to kind of loop in a little bit later with building out classroom activities for you to maximize that time you are spending with your students in the classroom. Talk about some ideas and brainstorm as a group how we can really connect with students in unique ways, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of any of these demographic factors that we would consider in creating some of these activities. Doesn't sound like we really have to convince you guys of the value of socio-emotional learning. I know you're counselors, there's a reason you're counselors, you understand this stuff, but something that you shared that I think is really important is some of the administrators don't. They see budgets and they see funding and they know what gets funding and they know that it's not life skills directly, but really it is life skills, right? Because without those life skills, like you shared, Wendy, there's some portion of the academic skills that are going to be lagging behind.
There's correlation, for
totally.
sure.
Identifying problem perceptions, beliefs in students. Like I said, some of the disconnect between hard work and success. Creating some new pathways, some new opportunities. Encouraging volunteer work, bringing in military recruiters and things like that to really expose students to new chances. And then, like I said, we'll wrap up by building out some activities. So this is just a quick slide. We kind of broke it down into what you know, what you want to know, and what you learn from this session. So what you know already, talking a lot about that socio-emotional learning. That's not something we're going to spend a lot of time on, especially since we got a little bit of a late start. But what you want to know, as far as what was just on that last screen, was there anything that you were expecting to get out of this session that we can really kind of double click on and make sure that we get there? I can go back.
I have to dip out of here just a little bit early to catch that tour, so I'm glad you asked that question. Why I'm here and what I really want to get off of you guys and this in general is how I can make my classroom as effective as it can be. So building classroom activities, we already have, we kind of build based on everybody else's syllabus, and I improvise and I do what they have done and I improvise on my own, but I really want to get some good solid ideas for building activities in the classroom, because I have that classroom and that's really important.
Once a week, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's something that I don't have, so I just cut to the
that's
chase.
why I'm here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I want to get
Cool.
ideas from you guys and
Like
brainstorm
specific
with that.
activities.
Yeah, and we already have kind of things outlined,
Okay.
but I don't want to miss anything. And if
Yeah.
there's something I can do that will just like spark it,
Cool.
make
Great.
it a little bit better.
Okay.
How about either of you two? Anything
on the
else?
same page.
On the same page?
Same page.
Cool. Great. That's definitely where we're going to be spending at least the last hour of this session. So there'll be a robust discussion, lots of sharing of what you have going on, some things that we've seen work pretty successfully. Your folders that you had are full of literature. I have a couple other pieces that I'll hand out as well. Some are specific to, for example, the role teacher expectations play on student achievement, and how do we work with our teachers to maybe kind of kick the mindset that med school's not for everybody. You know, whether or not it's realistic for me or for you, it's up for me or you to decide. You know, and it shouldn't necessarily be what your teachers are excluding from those conversations and driving student outcomes based off of eliminating some of that stuff from the conversation. So we'll talk about that. There's a piece on African American female students, engaging them in science and math that I'll share with you. There's one also on some studies, a meta-analysis that was done on incorporating socio-emotional learning into the classroom, and a multi-tiered approach. And so we'll use quite a bit of our time this morning identifying stakeholders, key stakeholders on campus, and make sure everyone's pulling in the same direction. And maybe you have a great parent engagement network. You never have to worry about weather because everyone lives on campus. You know, all of these things that can really support some of your efforts versus what are some threats, what could hurt some of your planning, and identifying that so we can work ahead to navigate some of that stuff. So for the time being, we'll probably breeze through the role of the counselor. This isn't going to be a surprise to any of the three of you.
So I have a question then.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you considered an administrator or a teacher? Like, what is your
Both.
principles? Okay, both.
Both.
How about you?
Counselor. We're
Counselors
considered
are-
school counselors. There's 4 of us on my side.
So is that an administrative umbrella or is that a teacher umbrella?
I'm an
We sign a
admin
teacher
and I'm
contract.
also instructor. So
Oh.
in our job title, we have a lot of different.
Okay, because I don't have a teacher contract, yet a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, read the ask model and things like that. It's like
Yeah.
you're an administrator, you're not paid like
We
an
follow the
administrator,
ASCA.
But you
Right.
should be a
Okay.
leader.
but that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think that's something that counselors struggle with all the time, is just trying to teach your administrators how to utilize you as leaders.
There's a
because
big
it
part on the
doesn't-
ask model, like they're just.
And they get that confused because then they utilize you as an assistant principal in some sites, which is not what
Not
you're supposed
what
to be
you-
doing.
exactly.
Right.
And then are you a test coordinator? Do you know what I mean? Like, so if
Yeah.
you're like a
All of those.
if you're a one-person job, right?
You
It's
know
just
it.
like, okay, you bring in your resource, you bring in your VP, you bring in your administrator, you bring your, then who's the test coordinator, who's the credit check recovery, and it's almost too much, where it's confusing.
Yeah.
Right.
And the role at my school is very confusing, and I have gently brought this up every year.
Because you wear 16
And,
hats.
Every year, and I just want someone, please, I'm very like boundaries, or and things like that. What is my role?
Yeah.
What
Can
are
you
you
tell
doing?
me what I'm doing today? And I think a lot of this conversation really does come back to something that I didn't want to skip this slide for, is how can we measure a counselor's impact? And one of the reasons why I really asked you what makes you feel successful is because oftentimes what makes you feel successful isn't what you're graded on. You know, isn't what your administrators, the assistant principals, the principals, district leaders are looking at as far as, yes, Jessica is successful because this. How do we measure your impact on these students, and you know, what does that look like on your campus? So how do we know when you've succeeded? So there are the 2 pieces in your folder are comments on socio-emotional learning. One is a very large, very dense study. Please do not read that one right this second. But it will give you some amazing ammo to go back to your administrators and say, look, this stuff matters. Data shows it. The study that there are, I think, 213 studies analyzed in this report of 270,000 students, all of whom were meeting the same criteria. They were kindergartners through 12th grade students. And so starting as young as preschool or kindergarten, what we're seeing is the percentages of students attending preschool is almost identical to the percentage of students attending college, 2 or 4 year schools. And so how do we really start to develop this at such a young age and really emphasize socio-emotional learning as a key piece in our curriculum? Okay, so I think here it will be important for us to define socio-emotional learning, just kind of breaking it out into two, its roots, social and emotional. You guys have seen this on your campus, in your schools. What does it look like? Social intelligence, if you had to break out social intelligence, what are some key, kind of bullet points that you would loop under social intelligence versus emotional intelligence? And let's, I think I actually prepared these. There it is. All right. So we're just going to kind of break it out into two sides, emotional intelligence versus social intelligence, and just have a brief discussion about where we see this showing up. It's going to be very different. Catholic school, military school, a school with a significant portion of refugees. So looking at social intelligence versus emotional intelligence, where do you guys want to begin?
Emotional intelligence, like what I'm seeing in learning is boundaries.
Okay.
And yeah, boundaries with friendships, boundaries with teachers, and then self-control and learning how to, manage that the emotional side when they come to school.
Okay. You mean like self-control?
In terms of student not liking the outcome and then
Okay.
just boom, they're out of there.
Maybe correlating actions with outcomes a little bit better,
Sure.
kind of that connection. Coping skills.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm on the right page.
No, definitely. This is the right page. How about you, Wendy? On the emotional side, anything that you see showing up?
Well, gosh, yeah.
I mean, you guys deal with high school students. That's
We
a
do.
very ripe time for
And-
developing emotional intelligence.
Sure, and everybody handles things differently. So we have the students that are just very, we try to teach them their consequences and to not deflect the blame on other people. So if they are late for something, it's like, oh, well, it was because of this. It's accepting responsibility.
Yeah.
And
Accountability.
accountability is in everything.
Yeah.
Not everybody is 100% on that, but that is what we try to show them, is that it is not, oh, I'm sorry, but it's like, no, you can give your reason, but you gotta accept it. And part of developing and learning that is accepting that and saying, is there any way you can? If there isn't, if I can't make this up, if there is, I accept that, but is there any way I can? So just that learning right there and not expecting things all the time.
Okay.
I've had students come at me like, you told me you were gonna do, it's like, wow, you tell me what I'm gonna do for you. It's like, that's not gonna get you anything first. So, everybody has their different social intellect, and then there's the others that are just like, yes ma'am, no ma'am, okay, that's fine. It's just like, wow, that was easy. So you just never know what you're gonna get.
Okay.
And you gotta be ready for the
Totally.
rest.
So what do we see on the social side? What would we kind of list as some factors that go into social intelligence?
Maturity.
Okay.
With that social intelligence, we have had some of the more mature ones be able to take up leadership roles and mentor those that are not there yet. And, they understand people, you know who you are. But those kind of, whenever you break out into, especially in our school, we have to have squadrons. So like each squad has their squad leader. And, it's just broken down. There's all these tiers, So those who do possess that intelligence kind of become that role model for the others to help them balance. It's like a peer,
Okay.
the peer.
So they are motivating. You all know people that you would consider are socially intelligent, right?
Right,
So,
they just possess that intelligence, they just get it,
and that's something that I really want to kind of continue on a little bit about, because being socially and emotionally intelligent, it doesn't necessarily go unnoticed, but it's really hard to kind of compliment a student for that, right? It's hard to pause in the middle of a conversation and say, hey, that question that you asked was great because it kind of deflected some of this anger that you had or that I shared. So navigating some of these conversations and really underlining the importance of this stuff in our day-to-day and kind of connecting this skill that oftentimes we take for granted, those of you that are good, that you would consider socially or emotionally intelligent, we kind of take it for granted, right? It's not that we know how to read people, but it's that we recognize that we know how to read people, and because that's the case, I can tell Stacy, hey, next time you shouldn't be so blunt about this. And so just kind of the awareness of an appropriate expression of one's own emotions here for emotional intelligence, I think it's just so important because oftentimes students aren't even recognizing that.
Right.
They don't recognize when they're expressing.
yes. I have those students, I have a couple that stand out to me that are just like, I just get it, and I just know, and I understand, and they think that they don't have anything else to learn. They just know it all.
Oh, yeah.
So you have those two different types of emotional intelligence. I think, there's such, it's like, yes, you are an old soul and you do understand and you are self-aware, but you're also not self-aware enough yet to realize you don't know it all.
Right.
And,
So.
and just tagging on to that, we've had those conversations too with maintaining relationships is showing your authenticity and humility
Yes.
within that, and that which people do like and appreciate, it just fosters a stronger relationship.
Absolutely.
Like something that just keeps coming to mind for me was just an example yesterday. I had a room full of students, probably 20, 30 students, and then we had a guest speaker who was a lieutenant from Tucson Police Department who came in to speak to our kids about his educational process because he started out as an accountant and realized he hated that. He came to the University of Arizona. He didn't like being an accountant. He became a cop. He's been a cop for 25 years. He loves it. He's on the verge of retiring. He's going to go into being a baker. He's going to be a baker. So it's
That's
like,
really neat.
whoa, so he came and talked to our kids about how
Holy
things
cow.
change and stuff like that. So, but looking around the room, I was just cringing because there were a couple kids asleep, a couple kids with their feet up on the chair, a couple kids on their phones, a couple kids whispering,
Yeah.
and I'm in the back and I'm moving to all these kids, waking up,
Yeah, you
or
do.
telling them to be quiet, and I'm like, those are things that you should know better and just have the respect when there's somebody in the room, you give them your full attention, and those are the life skills that I'm like, kids should know that. Like, I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and I would just die if they behaved that way, and they wouldn't behave that way.
Yeah, I mean, we see it in restaurants when we go to eat,
Exactly.
we see it, there's so many different
We're having
iterations
to
of this.
assume the role of teaching the manners.
Exactly.
I can't tell you how many times I've said, when you get a letter of recommendation, where's your thank you note to the recommender? Where is your thank you note?
Well, and even taking it one step further, you can't ask for a letter of recommendation that you need tomorrow.
Exactly.
That's how you-
It takes
I've had
someone
to
being
train them,
socially and
that's
emotionally
taken
intelligent to be like, look,
Right.
you're busy. You have a 9 to 5. You work 40 hours a week. No, it's like 70 or 80 hours a week for you school counselors and for a lot of working professionals, let's be honest, especially those that a student would be attracted to ask for a letter of recommendation from, and just being respectful of their time. It takes this, right, to understand that.
Do you all find that you sometimes have students that have that social, they have the respect, they have that maturity, but yet they lack the emotional intelligence? And then you have those students, like you said, those old souls, who then lack the respect. It's like they have half of the whole, maybe the whole big picture. How do you handle those students? That
individually.
Yeah,
on
because
an individual basis, and just redirect and reteach. And it's, just being like, oh my gosh, like that lieutenant. I've had colonels from the ROTC Air Force come in, and I'm just at U of A, and I'm just like, oh, do you guys even know? You know what I mean? And they're just, and I was like, wow.
Was it mandatory for everyone to attend?
But it was my class that is career and college planning.
Okay.
So he was a guest speaker, and it was just like, wow, how do you even know? Like, they don't.
They don't.
And that just frustrated the heck out of me.
And I feel like it's the nature of the beast. I mean, and especially I think when you're in Arizona, I mean, we're in the bottom, right? We have the
I grew up
highest
in San
average.
Diego, so
We're
I'm
going to
familiar.
have the highest average in student counselor ratios. It's like 901.
Yeah.
And we don't have elementary school counselors.
No, that's when I graduated.
And
They cut it. They cut it. I was like,
Right.
Jesus.
And
Yeah.
I feel like some of those skills are where you need to be learning them in elementary
And those were
school.
the classroom lessons that we were taught
Right.
to go in and teach these lessons, and the coping and all that other stuff. So it is going back to teaching manners in kindergarten to 15,
Yeah.
16, 17-year-olds.
And it's different, you know, now both parents have to work. It
Mhm.
used to be that mom was home and at least
Yeah.
maybe mom was teaching some of those life skills, and
Yeah.
now both parents are working and some of that
Or
responsibility.
even worse,
is
maybe
school.
parents are split, and so what social and emotionally intelligent looks like at mom's house versus dad's house is totally different, and
Right.
that's confusing for a student. You know, we have to be able to kind of identify what are these roadblocks, what are these hiccups, and how do we kind of create an environment that fosters that we can acknowledge what's going on and then work to fix it if we need to. I think, and just moving forward for the sake of time, this next slide, shocker here, right? Research repeatedly demonstrates that emotional intelligence and academic success are linked. This is no surprise. This is old news for most of us. However, it sounds like your administrators might be shocked to hear some of this kind of stuff. Or maybe they just refuse to believe it. I don't know. But a lot of this research that and the articles I've shared with you and will continue to share with you over the next hour will be ammo for that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Next, just looking at this motivated piece, engaging them in all these different opportunities, providing them exposure to networks, whether it's through volunteer opportunities, whether it's through guest speakers coming in, whether it's through like a take your kid to work day or having parents come in to talk about what they do, just exposing them there. I think part of what matters here is defining at risk and recognizing that as counselors you're kind of pigeonholed because of your caseloads, that you spend the majority of your time with at-risk students and high-achieving students. And what happens to everyone in the middle that we just take for granted, and they're diligent about their homework, they know what classes-ish they need to be taking in order to get to college, and they don't necessarily leverage you as much as they could or maybe
In
should.
his high school, that's so my son. 'Cause
Yeah.
He's not like he's high achieving, but he's not like perfect ACTs, and
Right.
he's not at risk.
Right.
And he's in a big public school, and it's just like, wait, well, how have you promoted him?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's definitely something we're going to talk about. And I think, is there an defining at risk?
No, I think
Whenever you're spending so much time
Okay.
with
Okay.
so much individual,
Okay.
you know, there's so much time and energy that gets spent towards those.
but you
who-
probably have professional counselors at
Yeah,
your
we do.
school too.
Yeah.
We do have two
Psychologists and
behavior counselors. We do. We have two of them, and that helps a lot. But it doesn't always, it's not always effective because there is only two between 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then with,
the population.
yeah, the population. Oh my gosh, it helps a lot. It really does.
That's awesome.
Because we can divide and conquer.
It sounds like you have a great program.
So let's just take a couple minutes. Jessica, you threw out a couple things, attendance issues, would describe a student as at risk. What are some other factors that go into at risk? And some things that we can use to really promote.
Non-responsive.
Okay.
Failing grades.
Failing grades. Okay.
Depression.
Depression, absolutely.
Youth on their own.
Yep.
Is that one more time?
Youth on their
Youth
own.
on their own.
Homeless youth. It's actually, I'm fortunate enough to have a very large partnership with Denver Public Schools where we serve about 1,800 students every year. And several of their campuses, and something that I would throw on this list, not necessarily as at risk, but pregnant or new moms.
Yeah, new moms.
Yeah. Pregnant female students and new moms.
You know, this is the only school that I have been where the new moms is not an issue because we don't accept it.
Right.
But it's the youth on their own is a huge one for us.
Okay.
Because our school is like out of sight, out of mind.
Mhm.
They just send your kids there, like, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Totally their own.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then a challenge for you, it
My
sounds
parents
like.
across the world, or,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, you can
Wow.
you not get a hold of them. It's,
Huh.
you know, they're just kind of,
Wow.
you are raising these kids, so it's interesting.
Do you ever
Yeah, there's-
classify the students that have good grades, do everything right, but they're socially very shy or introverted as an at-risk student?
Yeah, socially at risk, yes, definitely.
So are introverts kind of good
On the spectrum, we would say they're spectrum kids. I'm not, academically, they're not maybe at risk,
Right.
but they are definitely in terms of selling themselves, life skills,
Yeah.
hygiene, the whole, you
Yeah.
know.
Is there anything else on that other end? Because when we think about at risk, we often think of the students that come from the lower socioeconomic classes, certain demographics. I personally wasn't at risk, although I was valedictorian in my school. I was because of the social piece of it and because of other factors. And it you know, as I think back 20-some years later, it went down a different path for me. So I'm always an advocate. At risk doesn't mean
You're poor.
exactly.
Not due
We
to
have-
fail.
We have
Right.
emotional
Yeah.
neglect from wealthy families. We have kids that are gotten into like sexting and selling.
Oh, yeah.
They're almost like a light pornography type of thing. Because there is no parental supervision at home, there's just way too much, and they have money. They have access to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
I hear about it, you know, I can get this deal at the Marriott Hotel after prom, you know, and things like that.
Right.
And it's,
It goes back to that affluenza teen whose parents had a ton of money and gave him his own house at 16 years old.
Right.
And he went and killed people. You know, he was a great student. He did very well.
kids are kids.
He's the other side of
Poverty,
that.
rich kids, poor
Yeah.
kids. Kids are
Doesn't
kids.
matter where you are.
Yeah.
There's
Great.
those kids that are, you know, very strong academically, but they're trying to stay awake at night.
Or they're the
taking,
OC, yeah,
you
the
know, they're
OCD
taking
kids.
something to keep
You
themselves
know,
away.
your basis kid.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Those
What happened to
kids.
the DARE program?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if
exactly.
you guys are around for that, but.
That are just OCD about staying up and neglecting their health,
Yeah.
and parents allowing it,
Yeah. Video
For the grade.
games, insomnia, all kinds of stuff.
which goes.
Well, the parents are part of the problem, pushing them to do more, better, work
Yeah.
harder.
So an at-risk
Right.
can be a
Being so
helicopter
connected
parents.
all the time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then it leads to teen suicide and, well, cutting, you know, definitely the kids with the cutting, and then the drinking and the drugs, but then
Yeah.
the, you know, the suicide.
Substance abuse.
Substance abuse.
I think even, especially now we are so connected with instant gratification and an overdependence on technology. Now that it's not necessarily at risk, but I think being overdependent could be at risk for sure. You know, whether that's on any XYZ factor, it's fine. But okay. So we'll come back to this list here in a little bit. Here, just talking about kind of the connection between college-going rates, college readiness, how we are traditionally so focused on preparing students academically to be successful at college, but what happens when someone comes waving a credit card application in your face your first week on campus, and then you rack up 10 grand in credit card debt? You know, how do we have, how can we take advantage of opportunities to reinforce setting expectations and making sure that students are understanding of what to expect at the next level, not just academically, but also socially, and the importance of finding something to be involved in, a student organization. Maybe you're going to be an RA or a TA or work at the bookstore or go to every football game and sit with the same people every time. You know, so looking at some of those soft skills as transitional skills to being successful at college and positioning them as such instead of just consistently, oh yeah, your 3.8 GPA and your 31 on the ACT is going to get you into X school. You know, it's hard to be successful if you're not happy, and part of being happy is being able to navigate your day to day. You know, whether that's goal setting, whether that's time management, whether that's financial literacy, accountability, all these soft skills. Okay. Moving on forward, some just kind of bullet points here. Obviously focusing on the right-hand side for the three of you as far as the high school bullet points go, I think a big one here is connecting effort with success. Going back to hard work does equal success, and making sure students do understand that's the case, especially those that are coming from potentially less fortunate backgrounds, less supportive home environments, where they haven't been directly exposed to, yes, if you show up to work and you do a good job and you perform, you meet the goals that are set out for you, you're gonna get a promotion, or if you attend class every day and you do your homework, you're gonna get an A. So just kind of connecting effort with success is a big part on this slide that I wanted to make sure we talked about here. This is an opportunity where we can translate some of these with the new Every Student Succeeds Act, which has replaced No Child Left Behind, does give individual states more of an opportunity to develop their own curriculum and their own academic socio-emotional standards and have them approved at the national level. And so just some bullet points here that you can take back and potentially build some of those objectives off of.
So often our society sees success as money,
Yeah,
and our kids see that.
Yep.
The latest iPhone, you're rich, or the car, and that's success.
Yep.
And so the kids that are not
even
from
clothing.
that the affluent homes, your middle class, your poverty kids, their terms of how the fastest way I'm going to get the money, and I've heard
Regardless
this
of
over
how I get
and
there.
over and over.
Yeah.
Is almost a drug. I don't know. I mean, do you get that?
Well, I mean, think
'cause
about
it's like
Colorado.
money
I live in
drugs.
Colorado, and
Oh yeah, the medicinal marijuana in the car. We've got kids with cards.
it's
and-
recreational in
Yeah.
Colorado. Like, you can literally buy it on your credit card if you're 21.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
older siblings, cousins, all of that influence and just the availability of it is a threat in this instance.
So that's been like a challenge, right?
Moving forward a little bit here, this is obviously not just a quality modifier. That big dense article that is clipped has all kinds of data that will support this, but successful implementation and follow through, it'll break out the four main components of successful implementation of an SEL program. It includes parent engagement, student engagement, well thought out implementation, and a commitment to the programming. But essentially the study shows that an 11 percentile gain in academic performance, essentially students involved in these programs would go from the 55th percentile to the 66th percentile academically. And so, just more fodder for, yes, this is linked, and academic success needs to be supported by successful socio-emotional learning opportunities for our students. I would love to have a conversation with this. I think this is going to be important for us to set the stage and start putting some goals together. So on your own campuses, it sounds like maybe some of the administration could be one of your roadblocks here. It sounds like, Wendy, for you, maybe your ability to communicate with parents might be a roadblock for you. But what are some issues with designing and implementing an SEL program on campus where you can, that are preventing you from really making strides there? And then we can kind of build some goals around them.
We have a program that I've used.
Okay.
It wasn't, it was called the Leadership Project.
Okay.
And so we met with each grade level, and it was mandatory. So it was mandatory, and it was that the kids were to come on our late start Wednesday. So every day they started at like 7:45, but late start was 8:45. So that freshman class had 4 days a year, and it was set up, 4 different days, and the sophomores and juniors and the seniors, and they had a rubric to master in terms of resume, personal statement,
Okay.
Goal setting, things like that. So I would show up, do my lessons, and out of 37 kids, 12 would show up.
Okay. So attendance.
But there were no repercussions.
Okay.
It was
Accountability.
mandatory. I planned, but there was no consequence for the kids who didn't show up.
Got it.
And so it became so frustrating.
I was going to say you wanted to probably.
Yeah, and it still, and that was 3 years ago. So then it went to, I like this idea on late start Wednesdays, I will have these seminars financial literacy, you know, things for resume building, things like that. So I'd have 4 kids. And it was always advertised. I'd have, you know, things like that. So then this year I went to, you know what, let's make sure we're gonna do all this, and it's an elective class. The motivation level from the students, and the students that I got in the elective class were not particularly college-bound, 4-year college-bound students. They might be military career or community college then going on. They were just very, credit recovery was more of their focus, so it's been like so piecemeal.
Right.
But how many students are in there?
13.
So you're
And
only still getting
per semester. Yeah, so I'm
Right.
not reaching, so then I'm like, let me go back to that first year when I actually have go into the theology class where it's, they're more, you know, we have theology, or go into the English class, the teachers that allow me to take their time. And that's how I get it done.
Okay.
But it's a lot of like, you know, organizing and things like that. So it's the lack of accountability.
Lack of accountability, student motivation, attendance, identifying roadblocks, great. Wendy, would you say parent engagement would be a roadblock for you? Sounds like some of your families are either geographically far away or otherwise disconnected from their students.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with a lot of spoiled kids too.
Okay.
So,
I can't write spoiled.
I know, so that's how I'm trying to word this. There's some that are just like, oh, I gotta worry about that. You know, it's
Okay.
like,
Is there, I gotta say,
Entitlement,
entitlement, is that
yeah.
kind of the issue for you?
I think it's a new word.
absolutely, I think it's a new word in our day and age that we deal with is entitlement, that they don't have to worry about it, but they do, and that's, you know, I guess we also go through these, you know, the same programs that you're talking about. And I think that their perception is that it's so far away, I don't even have to worry about that. And just really getting them to realize, no, like you only have a couple of years left and you are that independent person that has to make these decisions. And if I don't tell you, apparently you're not getting it outside of class, you know, we're the ones that are telling you. So, you know, even if it's just planting a seed and, you know, all we can do is just say it and hope that whenever they are faced with it, then they remember us saying it. But yeah, I mean, if they're listening, hopefully they are. But,
That's
you know,
like
there's a
being a
lot
parent,
of,
you
yeah.
know, just hoping
Oh,
that
and
you're
that's
giving your
what
children
teaching
the right
gets out.
tools and
Yeah,
then they
you're
go.
right.
Yeah, we do. It's always been that way. We are always the other parent. You know, we spend more time with them than their parents do.
Yeah.
So that's why our roles are so important. And yeah.
Yep.
It sounds like you have kind of a listening versus hearing thing, where there's students that come.
Absolutely.
But there's more of like, are they absorbing what is going on? Do they
Oh, yeah.
understand?
And I know that some of them do, because there are those very ones, you know, even though they're looking at you right in the eye, they're still thinking about like, okay, what am I gonna do? I need to check my phone.
I'm sorry.
You know, stuff like that. It's like,
Facebook,
and then,
Yeah.
yeah, and then there's those ones though that are just like are engaged and they're like, you know what? And can I get more information? You're just like, you can't get more information. And then it's like,
Thank you.
yeah. So it's like, and then there's those. It's just like, hey, it's time for us to go now. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. So yeah, it's all of those. But
Okay. I think the main point here is just identifying how many moving pieces are at play. There's a very delicate balance between roadblocks and stakeholders, and unfortunately, you know, student outcomes are at the other end of that. And in order to enable them to be successful, we have to identify the key stakeholders that will help us alleviate some of these roadblocks and create a path for them to connect this with their next step. And start to realize, yeah, go ahead.
with my learning, to make sure, I mean, it's really hard to make sure that any of them are staying engaged. If I'm talking about anything in the classroom about some of these issues, I'll have them write anything. I'll just have them write down what they're getting out of it and return it back to me. If it's one sentence, just so I can see what is going through their head, if anything at all. They're telling me something.
Yeah.
So that's how I try to keep it. Just write
Cool.
something down and give it to me before you walk in, and it better not be me.
Otherwise, there's a consequence, right? You have to
I
give it to
name
them.
on it. I know your handwriting.
For the sake of time and getting to goal setting, key stakeholders, because we will use this later. I think obviously teachers, administrators, parents, students. I think oftentimes we sometimes overlook community organizations. If maybe the 10% of your students go to the Boys and Girls Club after school for basketball, how do we engage the Boys and Girls Club in some of these efforts, and how, or at least communicate with them some of our objectives so that they can be pulling in the same direction? So other key stakeholders,
Coaches.
Princeton review. Yeah, coaches, definitely coaches.
Right.
Religious leaders, I would say, for sure.
Anybody else? The Princeton Review. It's
Okay.
really I do help in the community for you all. We can talk about that if you're ever interested later as well.
Yeah.
In what?
In helping you, as becoming part of a stakeholder, we can come in and do presentations and help you take some of that load off.
Oh.
We don't just do this at conferences once a year.
I was like, are you from Princeton?
No.
I don't even know what Princeton Review is, sorry.
You don't? Oh,
College
okay.
readiness
We'll talk
programs,
later.
college readiness. Look at, I'm new.
It's okay. You also missed our introduction. So it's
Oh, I
okay.
know. Okay, sorry.
This is a chapter, actually, I am going to pass out one of these. What's this one?
Sure, that's a better idea.
This is an article on how teachers are in a very unique position to set expectations for their students that are then very predictive of their success. Specifically connecting 10th grade math teachers with college going rates and things like that, and how accurate 10th grade math teachers have been when asked to comment on how far do you see this student going in their educational career. It's very accurate. 10th grade math teachers are the most accurate, actually. So we're going to jam through this section. I wish we could spend some more time here. There are lots of amazing studies that talk about this kind of stuff. I think there's a reason why students are striving towards specific careers. Oftentimes it's because that's what their parents do, or that's what the town's known for, or whatever. We want to go to the University of Colorado Boulder because they have an aerospace program that's funded by NASA, and it becomes a little one-track mind. And so how we can kind of leverage student mentors, volunteer opportunities, community organizations to really expand some of these horizons and encourage students to consider alternative pathways as their next step, specifically in pursuing careers. This is kind of an interesting slide here. I think what I would like to kind of talk about now is how we can use this as an opportunity to kind of get into the minds of some of our students. And what I mean by that is, if we have an objective for today's session, for example, maybe it was our goal is to convince our school administrators of the value of socio-emotional learning. I would then potentially sit all my school administrators down, share with them this goal, and then have them rewrite this goal. And I think this is something that we can do in the classroom as well. If you have, maybe our goal of the week is you're going to show up 5 minutes early to every engagement that you have, or you're going to turn in all of your homework on time 100%. Maybe for you it's you're going to come to my Wednesday late start class at 100% attendance. So having students then internalize that goal and then share back how it reflects in their life. And I think that's something that we can use kind of across the board, and a strategy that you can take into the classroom to really see from their view, what you have these goals for them and these objectives that you want to accomplish, but what does that mean to them? How do they see that impacting their future, and how does that kind of differ from what you had in mind? Because oftentimes we'll find that they're not necessarily the same. Okay. Moving forward. This goes back to the article where the majority of at-risk inner city students do find that there is no correlation between hard work and success. I think something that I wanted to point out here, and something that you can take back into the classroom for sure, is a student can be a student on the soccer field and an athlete in the classroom. This idea of transferable skills. If you think that you have no hope going to college because your parents didn't go to college, or because you can't afford it, or whatever, but you instead see yourself as potentially playing Olympic soccer or being a world-renowned violinist or something like that, how do you take those transferable skills and apply them to the classroom and use it as motivation for students academically, or the opposite? If you have a stellar student, how do we encourage them to take that mentality of being an incredible student into their extracurricular life and develop that way too? All right. There's a point here, hard workers take for granted that hard work does anything helpful. So I think it's really important to pat students on the back when they have really performed and exceeded expectations. Looking into the future, again here, definitely campus visits, things like that. Whether that's taking them on a campus visit to a 2-year school or a 4-year school. Maybe it's bringing in military professionals and recruiters to talk to them about that. Maybe we're bringing in banking professionals to not only talk about their careers, but also financial literacy. Lots of volunteer opportunities, encouraging your students to think outside the box and get creative when it comes to creating their own pathways and opportunities. I know some of this stuff happens. For example, like students that were taking the Plan and the Aspire back when those were around, they had some of those career outlook surveys at the end where you would answer some questions almost like a personality test, and then it would match you with potential next steps. And oftentimes those were careers that students weren't considering for a number of different reasons. All right. Just kind of a summary thus far. We're going to jump into goal setting. This is kind of an interesting inverted funnel that sort of describes a flow here. So just take some time to kind of internalize this, and then what we're really looking at is connecting our goals with accomplishment. It's important for us to realize that when students don't have clear goals, oftentimes they find themselves without any plans for their next step. And just the importance of building goals and having goals to stay focused, whether it is college, 2-year, 4-year, military, whatever that looks like. This is the inverted funnel.
The 38% need remediation, is that students maybe not knowing how to ask for it, how to get it on the college campus?
Mm-hmm. Yep, or not realizing that failing an English class here would mean that they would have to take an intro to English class, or maybe didn't take an AP lit class. And now, instead of being able to take creative writing or writing for business at the university level, they're having to take some remedial classes. So just aligning goals with outcomes.
Well, when I worked for Sheldon Learning Centers, one of the biggest eye-opening things for me, because I worked in education for a while, is we would have students coming to us that couldn't pass the Ames at the time. Mm-hmm. And we would do a test of their reading skills. Their average reading level usually was 2nd to 4th grade. So if we're graduating students with a 2nd to 4th grade level, then they're entering college at that level. The Scottsdale school system in Phoenix, or Scottsdale, they did a test of all of the students in the Scottsdale district, and do you want to know what the average reading age of seniors was? 4th grade. Average. And those are students that are graduating and entering into college, so how did they then have the skill set to graduate? Right? So, clearly starting in 9th grade or even before is going to get those students those skills so that they're more likely to graduate, go on to college, and be successful, versus the graduate and go on to college, and then we have a high-level college dropout. So it's very eye-opening. I've done a lot of research on that.
And working with students this year at my school, we've had, a good majority of our kids will want to go to Pima Community College, and then Pima comes to our campus to do the assessment tests, and they do. They'll come to your school.
They do active pacer stuff?
If you coordinate it, I don't know what they use.
In Colorado, it's an index score. They pretty much all of them use.
But a lot of the kids who take those all end up in
Yeah,
remedial classes.
half of
So,
ours do too.
and then Pima has, if you end up in the remedial math, it's a online course, and a good number of our kids don't have access to a computer at home. So then they have the option of going on campus and taking it on campus, but then it's self-taught basically, because I mean, how do you even improve those skills when you're still working on your own?
Yeah.
To try to
We find in the state of Arizona, our math skills are lower than our reading. It's interesting.
Moving forward and building out realistic goals, I think really working hand in hand with your students to identify good goals and recognizing that a good goal for me is completely different than a good goal for you. We see this all over the place: test scores, next step plans, career readiness. Setting goals has to be an individual thing, and just re-emphasizing that to your students, it's going to be really important there.
One of my favorite mantras with this is, if you say it, they hear it, but if they say it or they set that goal, then they live it.
Yeah.
That's really
It's true.
a big piece of that. You know, you can't, it's just like your parent telling you to do something. Until the kid wants to do it, they're not gonna do it.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. What do you do when a student has no goals or unrealistic goals? I know this is specifically the latter half of the statement is sometimes kind of a
Like I'm going to the NBA.
yeah.
I'm gonna
Like
go.
a rock star.
I'm gonna be Division I, play for Duke.
Right.
Right. Well, you have to get into Duke first.
Yeah.
That's what I say. So let's
Yeah.
look at the GPA.
Yeah, totally. But these are delicate conversations,
They
because
are.
at the same time, you want to support these students' ambitions, and absolutely, 100%, we're reaching for the stars all the time, but we want to also be able to celebrate success with these students too. And so maybe, and what we're going to talk about on this very next slide, is this is a handout that's in your packet. You can steal this, you can use it. We're going to use it now to create some of our own goals. But essentially this is, what is our goal? If our goal is to get into an Ivy League school, how do we then break it down? Okay, to get into an Ivy League school, I have to have a great GPA and test scores, and I have to be well-rounded in the sense that I have extracurricular involvement somewhere. Okay, how do I then get there? I have to show up to class every day. I have to turn in my homework on time. I have to be respectful of my teachers so they write me a letter of recommendation. I have to prep for my ACT. I have to volunteer at the Humane Society. I have to, all of these other goals. So, yeah. So this is a great structure for you to help your kids celebrate a lot of these successes, because in order for them to stay motivated and connected with their goal, they have to feel that as though baby steps make the world a better place, right? And so this allows them to identify the path to their big goal. Maybe this is something that Stacey and I talked about earlier today. If my big goal is to have a clean room, I have to do my laundry, and I have to wash my sheets, and I have to clean out my dresser of all the old clothes that I wore, and I have to wash my window and my mirror and all these other things. So, a big goal or this top tier goal can be big or small, and just the idea of recognizing the steps that it takes to get there allows you to really connect with your students in a different way and share those successes with them.
It's a great visual though.
I like this.
I have students that have like their big goal, and then they have like little more of those pieces to get to each little goal to get to the big goal.
Yeah, so, here, everyone has something different to them that is important. Kids need to know that they're the same way. Whether or not this is running a 5K or cleaning out your room, we all have the opportunity to create benchmarks and these smaller goals to ensure that we're on the right track and that we are setting ourselves up to be successful in that sense. There's just another comment on smaller, more immediate targets give students more opportunities for success along the way. Really important for them to stay connected with the outcome and engaged in the process. That's it, I think. Here, just really encouraging students to realize how much power they have in this process. What Stacey said I think is really important. The second that they verbalize their own goal, it's no longer you're convincing them to achieve that goal. It's, no, that's actually what I want. Whether it's after having had a conversation with a parent and that goal is, oh yeah, I want to go to University of California, Los Angeles, or whatever. Students do have direct power over this stuff.
Do you guys find that you're sometimes, because you're seeing so many students, I'm sure at Empire you're seeing tons, do you find that you're oftentimes, instead of using like a Socratic method and getting them there, you're just like, no, go do this, go do this?
Yeah.
Do you find that?
We get a lot of extra support.
Yeah, we do. We're actually really lucky. There's 4 counselors, we have a social worker, so we also have a college advisor that's from the U of A, because we're a Title I school, it's a grant that we have for 2 years. So we have that too.
So cool.
So we're in a really good situation. If everybody can, because we are all new this year, we could just figure it out, work together.
Yeah, it's
You
gonna
know,
be
it's gonna be an
fantastic.
awesome program
Mhm.
if and when we get there.
Very good then.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, the universe doesn't make anyone a doctor. So,
We go over a lot of like our strengths and weaknesses. Favorite
Okay.
subjects, weak subjects is, and going back to the SMART goals.
yeah.
Is it realistic?
Mhm.
You know, and then I talk about me. Was it realistic for me to get a 4.0 in Algebra 2? No, I needed a tutor all through high school math. And so then just be that authenticity, they're like, oh, wow, okay. So then you figure out like, it would, being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and
Yeah.
timely, so.
And you're doing a SWOT analysis, but, so, with going through the strengths. and
We're going to take your
weaknesses.
SMART goals to the next level.
Exactly.
Okay, I didn't even know what that meant, but go for
Yes.
it.
It's not a language, we're
It's
getting
got a
all of
title.
it.
Acronyms. SMART goals, SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis.
SWAT team.
SWAT.
I know my husband knows about SWAT team.
Yeah.
SWOT is my best, my most exciting.
Okay, that's right. Strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. Here we're talking about student allies who serve as allies for our students, and how can we emphasize to our students that it's oftentimes important for us to have different allies for different goals. Sometimes your parent is not your best ally to reach some goal. Sometimes your best friend also is a bad influence on your attendance. Just connecting allies with goals is really important, and understanding that you count on different people for different things. And that's part of that emotional social development as well. And opportunities to really work with teachers in the classroom here to make sure that they're pulling in the same direction, engaging their students. Maybe they have a classroom full of talkers, and so they're bringing kids up to help them teach some of the lessons. And instead of them fidgeting on their phone the whole time, it gives them a sense of accountability, responsibility, that they are more than just a student in the classroom at that point. Cool. How to ask for help. I think this is a pretty important slide here. It's definitely something that we can share with our kiddos, but more, just does your ally help you meet your goal?
I might need to work on that.
Yeah. Take a photo. I think this is also really important. For some of us, it's hard to accept feedback, and I think having a very strong understanding of how we like to accept constructive criticism, if we like to be more blunt, sugarcoat it, maybe someone wants it in a note instead of verbally. There are lots of different ways that we can be sure that students are understanding this piece here, because oftentimes it's a lack of communication on their part for them being offended.
That's a great training too. I've seen some counselors do in some of the smaller schools of teaching students how to provide and take feedback, because
Yeah.
it's something that's going to go with them throughout their entire lives.
How to have
There's an
difficult
SBI,
conversations.
Situation Behavior Impact. If you Google something like that, it's a great presentation that teaches students, and then it actually helps them at home. Because a lot of families, they just bluntly tell each other things, and it just spin you, and that sometimes will break a student down. Because that feedback piece is so important.
Okie doke. Continuing moving on forward here, teacher visions. This is the last handout that I will take or give you to take back. The one that you're going to get now is this article here. It's all about how we can, as counselors, position low-income female students, specifically African-American students, in the fields of math and science. It's another dense article, lots of statistics, lots of case studies and things like that, but it does give you some really good ammo to go back and share with. And also, some opportunities. One thing that I did read in there, and this was something that was unique, and a lot of some of the perceptions, beliefs, and things like that are going to be driven from their own backgrounds, whether it's ethnic background, religious background, all these different pieces. And so having students share in a very collaborative way what's important to them. Sometimes it's having a day where students can make food and bring it, whether it's culturally representative or something that they love to make, or make an art project that's symbolic of their background, their history, and things like that. So you'll hear in that article, you'll read rather, something that a teacher did as part of the study was they had an objective, and students had to then write a rap about how they were going to reach their goals, right? And it was all about like a parody, kind of, you know, I'm gonna this and this and this to whatever jingle your favorite tune. So that was really cool. This is just more about the relationship between teacher expectations and student outcomes when they end up. This is the 10th grade comment. Sophomore math teachers thinks you'll never go to college, you're 10 times more likely to never enroll. That's all from that study. This is again, big surprise, no shocker there, about academic success and social emotional learning. Since we only have 15 minutes left, I did want to kind of jump to this last section here. I think these are some important things to consider. It was really nice to meet you. Thanks so much for being here. We'll be here all week, so if you want to come hear about some of what you're missing, just find our table in the hallway.
Enjoy your tour.
Cool.
Enjoy your tour.
Enjoy your tour.
Sounds good. How many times have we done it?
I've been on campus a million
No,
times.
you haven't.
Yeah. No, she had to go for it. So.
Yeah.
Some of these questions to consider, current state on your campus specifically, what does this look like? Specifically, I think what kinds of interactions and what makes these interactions difficult are going to be really important for us to start digging into as we build out these goals. So we are now going to look at SMART goals as specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Everyone's seen a different iteration of this, I'm sure, specifically with an A. Sometimes it's achievable, and this is the one we're going to use for the sake of our little project here. But jam through some of these examples. I think we all get it. Okay. This here is a project that we're going to start. So we'll use the template that you have. You can either work together or you can work individually. I think since there's only 2 of you, you could definitely work individually here and create one that's very unique to your campus community, and one that's relevant for taking back immediately.
I was brainstorming thoughts as well.
Yeah. on the screen now, like I said, it's kind of taking your SMART goal to the next level. This is essentially like a self-analysis of your SMART goal. We use the term SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to really take a deeper dive into our SMART goal. We're looking at everything in our world that can help or hurt our chances of achieving our SMART goal. You know, some strengths might be a super engaged administration, maybe a parent network that communicates very frequently and they're very active. And strengths might be your football coach is incredibly motivational and students really look up to them. You know, weakness is obviously the opportunity, or the opposite of that. Opportunities and threats. Threats obviously could be anything from weather. I know in Colorado oftentimes that's a threat to achieving some of our goals, whether that's planning an event, parent-teacher conferences. Holy cow, it just snowed 2 feet in 30 hours. And that happened about 2 weeks ago. We've had more snow days as a professional than I did as a student in Colorado.
What city do you live in?
I live in Boulder.
Boulder, okay.
Yeah, our office is in Boulder. So I like this breakout here, just kind of gives you an idea. Strengths versus weaknesses. Maybe your strength is teachers and counselors work well as a team together, but maybe your teachers have little time to give you and vice versa. You know, so that could be a weakness or a threat, in my opinion. From here we take our SWOT analysis and we look at how complementary projects could then complement our opportunities and our strengths. How do we pull them together so that they're kind of a layer there. And then on the opposite side,
Buttress or weaknesses, what does that mean? What must we do to buttress and curtail our weaknesses?
Yeah, I mean,
Against
limit.
threats.
yeah, it's limit essentially. Yeah.
Weaknesses.
If you focus on the threats, you limit your weaknesses is essentially the goal of a SWOT.
Yeah.
More organized.
And if you focus on your opportunity, you get more strength. The two work in tandem.
We don't just give up because we have weaknesses.
It's interesting with having students do their own SWOT analysis of themselves and their goal.
Yeah.
And having them sit down and really think about what's holding them back.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where, you know, identifying those key stakeholders, those roadblocks and everything else are going to come full circle. Because what we identify as roadblocks and key stakeholders, who we identify as key stakeholders, could be very well different than what students envision as roadblocks and or stakeholders.
Or they
You might
basic-
find a stakeholder that they could see as a roadblock.
I was gonna say they can look at this the list and say, Mom, nope, she's not a stakeholder. Dad, nope, he's not a stakeholder.
Yeah.
Brother and sister, they're definitely threats. You
Yeah.
know? So going through that.
Even
with them.
peer groups, competition as a threat, you know, so sometimes it's really important to have a more holistic understanding of what our students are struggling with on their way to achieving a SMART goal, to have them really break it out like this.
Believe it or not, the students actually can understand.
Yeah.
You know, this is something they teach in business school, but for them to see it now and start looking, well, what are my strengths? What am I not good at? You know? And then we use the word opportunities as the opposite of a weakness sometimes, but looking at it more of like, so where can I grow?
Sure.
And then what's holding me back?
Right.
So
Yeah.
need to see what kids come up with, I think.
It
Yeah.
is.
And then this is more for you guys, and we'll just spend the last few minutes talking about what we call a RACI analysis. RACI is the acronym. It shows up. It'll kind of be that last table there. So this is our acronym. The R stands for responsible, the A accountable, C consulted, I informed. This allows us to game plan, strategize. Who is the doer? Who is the decider? Who needs to know? And it doesn't necessarily need to do, but they need to know. So who do we need on our team is the big piece here. What are the basic elements of the intervention? What logistical arrangements must we make? What kind of communication plan do we need in place for the team? This is all just making sure we've identified exactly who's involved and when. And so, maybe your analysis here is these are your key stakeholders, and these are the A's here. And just start kind of identifying and tagging these people that are involved in achieving your goal with their different role. Because oftentimes we find ourselves kind of with no job description, right? Where we're all over the board and we don't know how to really contribute without stepping on someone else's toes and not be overwhelmed.
Or just work doing 2 jobs. And not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the too many chiefs syndrome.
Too many chiefs, yeah.
Yeah. So this is all about how do we make sure that everyone who needs to be involved is considered and contributing effectively and drawing clear boundaries there for them. So for you, you'll obviously make a list of your tasks, right? Our goal setting, how we are going to accomplish all those goals that are up here are our stakeholders.